The Retroid Pocket 2. What is it? What's it do? What do I get when I order one? How do I feel about it? All that and more coming up. Check the timestamps to jump to the parts most important to you. Hey everyone, welcome to Cyberphile, the love of everything electronic. More and more I've seen these Chinese emulation machines making the rounds, and after a little research I took the plunge and purchased a Retroid Pocket 2. This is my first handheld emulation machine, so just keep that in mind during this video. I ordered in the second presale and it took just under 2 months to get to me, and while the wait was painstaking, it was definitely worth it. This is going to be the start of a small series on the Retroid Pocket 2, covering troubleshooting, setup, and things of that nature. If you think of a video you'd desperately like to see on the Retroid Pocket 2, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Here's what comes in the box when you order one. Obviously you get the system, preloaded with a 32GB micro SD, which actually comes with a bunch of encrypted ROMs on there right off the bat, but we'll get to that later. A screen protector, in fact one of the easiest to install screen protectors I've ever seen, and a USB-C charging and file transfer cable. I ordered with the presale, so I also received alternate buttons, a micro HDMI cable, and an OTG adapter. So what exactly is this thing? Basically, it's a small phone and a handheld game shell. It runs Android, so anything an older build of Android can do, it can do, within reason. It can also dual boot into Retroid OS, its own operating system specifically for emulation, but from what I heard, it's kinda crap. You can't use in-game saves, only save and load states, and adding games to it is something of a nightmare, or so I'm told. I've never used it, and the Android OS can handle everything I want to do, so I'll stick with that. It's got a quad-core Cortex A7 processor running at 1.5 GHz with a Mali 400 MP2 GPU and a gig of DDR3 RAM. It has a 4000 mAh battery, and I'll talk about roughly how long that'll last you later. It's got a 3.5-inch IPS display with a 640 by 480 resolution with a 4:3 aspect ratio. Despite being basically a phone, it doesn't have a touchscreen, but you can emulate touch whenever you need to. It's got 8 gigs of internal storage, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth functionality, and a micro HDMI out. It outputs audio in stereo, and there's a plethora of different colors to choose from, including new ones that just got added a few days ago. As you can see, I opted for the PlayStation 1 lookalike style. Okay, are you back from the tech talk? So what can it do? Well, it's a pocket emulator, meaning it plays ROMs of generally your retro games. It comes built in with a couple of standalone emulators as well as 2 versions of RetroArch, or RetroArch, depending on who you ask. And since it's Android, you can download any app that's on the Android store, so as many emulators as you need, or at least that are out there. The Retroid Pocket 2 can play nearly every system up to and including Dreamcast, with varying levels of quality. You can mix and match emulators and RetroArch cores to use whatever you get the best results from, but as for me, I use PPSSPP for PSP, N64OID for N64, Drastic for Nintendo DS, MAME for Droid for some arcade games, and RetroArch for basically everything else. The fact that it outputs at 640 by 480 with a 4:3 aspect ratio is perfect for emulating old games, as they're often optimized with this resolution and aspect ratio in mind. It can really make all the difference when comparing it to other pocket emulators on the market. Next, I'm going to show you some clips of gameplay on each system I have on this thing and how it runs. I'll also be including my thoughts when necessary and a ranking. In general, here's what each ranking means. 5 Cs means near perfect emulation. All or almost every game runs perfect or almost so. No noticeable drops in frames, audio, or visual quality. 4 Cs means most games run near perfect, with more demanding segments or games experiencing slowdown, frame drops, or graphical glitches. 3 Cs means most games I would consider playable, with slowdown here and there, and others are just impossible to play no matter how many settings you fiddle with. 2 Cs means most games are impossible to be considered playable, with some running okay, and 1 C means completely unplayable. Either it doesn't work or you get so few frames there's no point even trying. Okay, let's get on with it. N64 is kinda in a rough spot. Not only will you have to mix and match between Mupen 64 plus FZ, N64oid, and the Mupen 64 plus Next RetroArch core, the latter of which requires some configuration to even get playable, not only will you experience varying levels of quality, but you'll also need to tinker quite a lot in the settings to get many games to even a playable level. I've had the best success in general with N64oid, but your mileage may vary between 4Cs and 2Cs. Some games like Doom 64 get so few frames it's unplayable, or some games are missing a lot of textures.
Cool!
Like the N64, you'll need to fiddle around a lot with Raycast, Flycast, and the RetroArch Flycast core to get the best possible quality. Personally, I found that the RetroArch core is the easiest to configure and get working to a playable level. You'll probably go back and forth between 4C and 2C rankings, so this one gets a 3C for me.
What this place needs is color. Geronimo! Pulse racing, heart pounding. Where's the gun? Dude, I'm tripping!
PSP runs surprisingly well, but more demanding 3D games are going to chug really hard and sometimes just straight up not work. I found less configuring necessary to get these games running well, so I'm going to give it a 4C. Basically, the more recent you go, the more trouble you're going to have emulating. Many games run near perfect, but good luck getting more demanding titles running well. Also, take into account how you're going to configure arcade games with unique control layouts like trackballs and such. There's like one game I couldn't get to run, but MAME for Droid seems to run fine. I'm still gonna give this one 5 Cs.
Look out below.
Heavy machine gun. Thank you. Thank you. Machine gun. Lame shot.
Okay, let's talk about the hardware. It does feel pretty nice in hand, even after hours of continuous play. If I had to compare the buttons to something, it would probably be to a Nintendo Switch Joy-Con. Similar size, same layout clickiness. The D-pad on the other hand is a full D-pad, not separated into individual buttons. I would say most similar to a larger version of the 3DS XL's pad. The left analog is just a Joy-Con nub, for better or for worse, and the right analog isn't actually a full analog stick, it's a digital pad that sits inside the shell a little further, kind of like the PSP stick. It doesn't move as freely as the left analog, though most games you probably won't be mapping any controls to it anyway. One of the main selling points for this device for me is the inclusion of micro HDMI out, meaning you can connect it to your TV. Combine that with Bluetooth functionality and you can almost treat this thing like a retro Nintendo Switch. It also has built-in Wi-Fi connectivity so you can download stuff from the Play Store, or even set up NetPlay with it. The volume is fine, and there's a headphone jack if you're playing at the DMV or something, I don't know. I'm very impressed with the battery life so far. I play it most days for around 5 hours off and on, and still have 60 to 40% battery life left. Being able to tap the power button to put it in sleep mode is a great feature that I use regularly, and if I'm playing in RetroArch, I know I can pick up exactly where I left off. Now do note that this is definitely not a pick up and play system. There's a decent amount of setup required, and if you're not familiar with Android or RetroArch, you might struggle quite a bit getting all of your favorite games to run. And after you do get it running, it'll take quite a lot of time to set up a front end or launcher to get it to look as nice as I have it here. If you enjoy fiddling with settings and such to squeeze the best possible emulation out of your device, this might be the one for you. I've had mine for about a month, and I finally have it to where I want it to be. The last thing that makes this Retroid Pocket 2 so appealing to me is the price point. All this for only $85 plus shipping? That feels very much like the right price to me. How do you feel about the Retroid Pocket 2 if you have one? Do you have another handheld emulator? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and look forward to more RP2 content in the near future. I'd like to take a moment to thank my one and only Patreon supporter, Harvest Time. Thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot to me, and keeps me motivated to keep putting out quality content. If you're interested in becoming a patron, you can find the link in the description of this video. There you can listen to me sing your praises, and even score some exclusive Cyberphile merchandise. Hey, thanks for watching! Don't forget to subscribe for more Cyberphile content, and if you liked this video, show me with that little thumbs up button. If you liked this video, you might like one of my other videos. You can click right on the boxes to jump to them. Cyberphile, offline.